morning, MegaPodlings. It's Crazy Joe. You're going to be getting this on Friday the 19th. But yesterday, Thursday, the long-awaited Justice League Snyder Cut debuted on HBO Max. And this is going to be my review of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Any of you who have been watching this channel for a long time know I am a hardcore comics fan. I'm a hardcore DC Comics fan. Marvel as well. I like comics. I like comics. And I like Marvel. I like DC. There's no competition there. Personally speaking, the DC characters have been with me longer because my love of comics originated when I was very, very young and saw the Christopher Reeve movies and used to watch the Batman Adam West series every afternoon and Super Friends on Saturday mornings. So those are the characters I was kind of raised on. So those are the characters who probably are closest to my heart, although I do love the Marvel characters too. Man, Snyder Cut. Where to begin? Here's the deal. I've gone into this Snyder Cut. It's been a roller coaster ride for me. Going into this Snyder Cut has been a roller coaster ride. Because at first, if you've been a longtime viewer of this channel, you may know I did not want to see the Snyder Cut. I had no interest in the Snyder Cut. I said, bury the Snyder Cut, bury it deep in a ditch and let it never see the light of day. There's a reason I said that. The reason I said that is because quite frankly, I despise this movie. Man of Steel, I think, is a big old piece of garbage. I love the Superman character. Superman's near and dear to my heart. And I hate this movie. I hate it. And I will admit this movie is not fully Zack Snyder's fault. Because this movie, the story for this movie was conceived of by Christopher Nolan and David Goyer on the set of Dark Knight Rises. So this story was pretty much locked in place, and Christopher Nolan and David Goyer were like, this is the story we're going to tell. Now we just need to hire a director because Nolan didn't want to direct it himself. And basically, Zack Snyder became a hired hand. He was hired to point and shoot the story that Nolan and Goyer had already agreed to before Snyder came on board the project. So I always kind of gave Snyder a lot of slack for this because here's the other thing. I'm a big Zack Snyder fan. I love Dawn of the Dead. I love 300. I loved Watchmen, and I loved Sucker Punch. The only movie of his I've never seen is the cartoon with the owls. I never saw that. But everything else he's done up until this, I loved. I was a big Snyder fan. And I was on board with Snyder directing Superman. Then this came out. I hated this movie, but again, I gave Snyder a lot of leeway because I said, well, that was Goyer and Nolan. They had that story locked down before he even came on board. Then Batman v Superman came out. Batman v Superman I like a lot better than this. Batman v Superman is a huge improvement over this turd. But it's still got some problems, and most of the problems come from the characterization of Superman, who is still too sad and broody, and he's basically Batman in a Superman costume. That's what he is. I mean, Superman is a symbol of hope. Superman smiles. Superman is warm and charismatic, and that's not what we were getting in here. So coming out of this and coming out of Batman v Superman, I thought basically Henry Cavill's a terrible Superman. He lacks charisma. He lacks charm. Then we got this. Justice League. The Joss Whedon cut of Justice League. Now, I'm a huge Joss Whedon fan. I love my favorite TV show of all time, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I loved the Firefly Serenity. He did an amazing job with Avengers. Huge fan of Joss Whedon. So when Joss Whedon took over the reins from Snyder, I said, that's an upgrade. That's an upgrade. The guy who gave us Buffy the Vampire Slayer is going to take over from the guy who gave us Man of Steel. Well, Justice League comes out, and critics were not kind to this movie, and I got to tell you, I do not understand why. The theatrical cut of Justice League, directed by Joss Whedon, I love this movie. I absolutely love Justice League. I saw it about 4 or 5 times in the movies. I bought it, day it came out on Blu-ray. Then I went back and bought it again because I wanted a steelbook. Man, I love this movie. If I were ranking my top 5 superhero movies of all time, number 1 would be Shazam. Number 2 would be Avengers Endgame. Number 3 would be Avengers Infinity War. And number 4 would be Joss Whedon's Justice League. This makes it firmly into my top 5 superhero films of all time. So when I kept hearing Snyder Cut, Snyder Cut, Snyder Cut, I kept saying, no. No way. No way. The guy who gave us this, there's no way that the guy who gave us this is going to make a better Justice League movie than the guy who gave us this, and this, and this. I said, Whedon, Buffy, Avengers, Firefly. No, not a contest here. There's no way the guy who gave us Man of Steel is going to make a movie as good as them. So I had no interest in a Snyder Cut. No interest whatsoever. But then something interesting happened. Last couple days, reviews start coming out. People are saying it's really good. It's getting decent reviews. People are saying, hey, it's better than the theatrical cut. Like legitimate film critics. I'm not talking, Twitter guys. I'm talking like the real film critics are saying, no, this is better. This is a better film. And those critics didn't care for Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, so they're not exactly friendly to Snyder. So when these guys who haven't been friendly to Snyder in the past come out and start saying, no, there's something here, suddenly I was like, oh, perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps there is merit to this Snyder Cut. And I found myself over the last few days getting excited, more and more excited to watch the Snyder Cut because I was hearing such good things. And I'm like, I'm happy to be wrong. I'm really happy to be wrong. When I think something's not going to be good and then I hear, no, it's good, and I go see it and it's good, I'm thrilled to be wrong because I want to enjoy things. I really want to enjoy things. So this morning, I sat down, I cleared out 4 hours of my schedule, made some popcorn, watched the Snyder Cut, and I am here to tell you Joss Whedon's cut is far superior. Far, far superior. And I will tell you why. Number 1. Okay, look. The Snyder Cut, it's not an embarrassment. It's not this. It's not this. It's not garbage. And to those of you who've never seen my channel, there's so many reasons I hate this movie. First and foremost, the biggest flaw with this movie, the biggest flaw is the death of Jonathan Kent. The death of Jonathan Kent is the biggest flaw here. As someone who has a father who passed away, any son who has the ability to save their father from death would do so. Superman could save his father from a tornado. And Jonathan Kent just standing there going, no, let me go. No son's going to let him go. They're going to save their dad. The point of Jonathan having a heart attack in Superman the movie is it's a human death. It's something Superman can't do anything about. He has no control over that. But this movie, they give Jonathan Kent a very preventable death. And he's like, no, son, let me go. And Clark's like, okay, Dad, I'll let you go. No son's going to do that. That's just one thing. I can do a whole review on why I hate this movie. That's not why we're here, though. So, the Snyder Cut of Justice League, it's better than this. It is. It's not terrible. It's not an embarrassment. But here's the problem with it. Number 1, it's 4 hours long. It's 4 hours long. That is so self-indulgent. That is so incredibly self-indulgent because it doesn't have to be 4 hours long. It really doesn't have to be. It tells the same story. The story has not changed. The story is still Steppenwolf's coming to Earth. Steppenwolf's trying to gather the mother boxes. They're going to use the mother box to bring Superman back to life. All the story beats from this are still in the Snyder Cut. So it's telling essentially the same story. And this story that Joss Whedon was able to tell in 2 hours, it took Zack Snyder 4 hours to tell. And it's a slog, man. It is a slug. It is slow moving, and it is just questionable choices all around. Like there's a whole sequence called the Nightmare Sequence. Anyone who's familiar with Batman v Superman knows the Nightmare Sequence. We saw the Nightmare universe in Batman v Superman. Well, the Nightmare universe comes back in the Snyder Cut, but it's tacked on. It doesn't fit. There's times where you're wondering, what's going on here? What is happening? What is going on? Then they kind of, I see. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it's leading to nothing. It's leading to nothing because the producer, Walter Hamada, has already said they will not be following up on the Snyder Cut with a sequel. And if they did, frankly, I wouldn't want to see a sequel in the Nightmare universe. This dystopian world where Superman's a villain. I got no interest in that. I mean, it's Superman. One of the problems with this movie, we want Superman to be that symbol of hope. We don't want Superman as the bad guy. We want Superman to be the symbol of hope. That's the one thing Joss Whedon really got right. Joss Whedon made Superman a symbol of hope. This movie opens with a wonderful scene. A wonderful scene where some kids are interviewing Superman on a cell phone. Now, unfortunately, we all know there were problems on the set of this movie where they had to do reshoots, and Henry Cavill had a mustache, and they used CGI to remove the mustache. Well, the CGI looks like garbage. It looks like garbage, and the worst scene in the entire movie in terms of the mustache is when the kids are interviewing him on the cell phone. You can clearly tell they've done something to his face. He doesn't look right. So visually, it's not good. However, that scene has so much charm. And it's the first time in this entire franchise where Henry Cavill has charisma. Because Henry Cavill answering the kids' questions, he's smiling. It's the Superman we know and love. That's the first time, that cell phone interview with the kids is the first time Superman is the Superman we know and love. Because up till then, in this movie and in Batman v Superman, he's broody McBrooder pants. And finally, he's smiling, he's happy, it's Superman. This is the first we saw Superman. Joss Whedon gave it to us. That scene, gone. It's taken out. And what we do get in its place are Superman in a black suit, because it's always got to be, black and dark. And now in the comics, Superman wore the black suit after he came back to life, but it was a regeneration suit helping him. It had a purpose. In this, it's a fashion choice. In Snyder's Justice League, it's just a fashion choice. So we lose wonderful scenes like that cell phone scene. We lose some of the best scenes in this movie. There's a great scene in this movie, one of the best scenes in the film, where Aquaman sits on Wonder Woman's lasso and he starts being overly truthful. And then they realize he's sitting on the lasso. It's a great scene. Always got a big laugh in the theater. Everybody loved that scene. They took it out. There's a wonderful scene in this movie in the end credits where Superman and the Flash have a race, harkening back to all those classic Superman Flash races from the comics. Snyder took it out. There's a line in both versions where Aquaman, when he meets Bruce Wayne, says, "Strong man is strong alone." And Bruce Wayne in this cut has a great follow-up where he says, that's not the line. That's the opposite of the saying. Well, he still says that in the Snyder Cut, but they cut out Batman's response, which is a great response. They replace it with a lot of superfluous backstory for Flash and Cyborg, and I understand actor Ray Fisher was very upset his story was cut, but for God's sakes, the movie was 4 hours long. They didn't need to have Cyborg's backstory in a Justice League movie. Cyborg was supposed to get a spin-off movie, and that would be the perfect place to put the Cyborg backstory, because there's too much going on in this movie that needs to happen in this movie. You need to bring the Justice League together. You need to resurrect Superman from the dead. You need to stop Steppenwolf. Those are the things that have to happen in this movie. We don't need Flash and Cyborg's backstory. That could be saved for a later film focusing on Flash or Cyborg. I don't know. I really went into the Snyder Cut with an open mind thinking, this is it. We're hearing great things. And To say I was disappointed would be an understatement. Again, it's not an embarrassment. Let me tell you another thing, another place where the Snyder Cut really pales in comparison to the Whedon Cut. Joss Whedon had a score, the musical score in this movie was by Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman, who did the Tim Burton Batman movies, does the score in Joss Whedon's Justice League. And it is a wonderful score. It has throwbacks, musical callbacks to not only Danny Elfman's own Batman score, but John Williams' classic Superman score. Well, Zack Snyder has thrown that out and replaced it with a score by Junkie XL, and it is not good. It is not good. It sounds like it came off an episode of Survivor. You ever watch Survivor when they're at tribal council and you'll hear the voices going, like they'll be making those, like they call it Tribal Voices is the name of the theme song for Survivor. They call it Tribal Voices, and it's just people kind of making these, sounds in the background you hear. Well, in the Justice League movie, that's what we get. We get like someone going, ooh, ah. Like every time Wonder Woman's on screen, someone's oohing and ahhing in the background. Ooh, ah. It doesn't sound good. It sounds kind of pretentious. And then, whereas this film score in Joss Whedon's cut gave us nice callbacks to the Danny Elfman Batman music and the John Williams Superman music, now we're getting callbacks to Hans Zimmer's incredibly dull as dishwater score for Man of Steel. I hated that score. I can't stand Hans Zimmer's music. So the music's a letdown. We get this, dystopian nightmare crap again. Now, I'll say a couple nice things. There's some good action sequences. The special effects really look good. Darkseid certainly looks fantastic. Darkseid was left out of the first one, but he looks great in this movie. Steppenwolf, the CGI is improved a little. He looks better. And there is also another superhero. I'm not going to say who, but there's another superhero from the comics who is not in the Whedon cut that makes a surprise appearance in the Snyder cut. But a negative tack to a positive, as much fun as it was to see that character, the character was introduced in a pretty lousy way. Like, the two scenes that include that character don't make a lot of sense. Especially the first scene. The first scene where they introduced that character, it really felt like an afterthought. It really felt like they shot a scene and then they were like, oh, let's shoehorn this character in there and say that that's who it was. It didn't work. And the second appearance of the character works better, but there's still question marks surrounding it. Apparently, Zack Snyder gave an interview recently where he said where he planned to take Justice League if he got the chance to do a sequel. And his sequel ideas just sound abysmal. You can find this. There's not going to be a sequel to Justice League, at least not a sequel by Zack Snyder. If there's a sequel to Justice League, someone else is going to make it. I say give it to James Wan. James Wan did a great job with Aquaman. He could make a great Justice League sequel. And that's another thing. I didn't bring this up. I did not bring this up, but I talked about my great love of Joss Whedon. I need to point out, because of current events, Joss Whedon is a piece of garbage. We recently found out that Joss Whedon is extremely abusive to the women on his sets. Sarah Michelle Gellar, Michelle Trachtenberg, Charisma Carpenter, and some of the other women who worked on Buffy and Angel over the years came out and had some pretty horrible things to say about Joss Whedon. So as much as I was a fan of the man's work, I would never suggest hiring him again. He's been exposed. We know the kind of guy he is. I wouldn't hire him again. I'm talking about I was a fan of his work in the past. I certainly wouldn't support anything he does in the future. So you can't get a Whedon back. You can't get a Snyder. Well, they're not going to get a Snyder back. So I say get someone like James Wan. James Wan would be the good guy to carry Justice League forward in a sequel. But Snyder said his plan for the sequel would have been all around the dystopian nightmare world that I hated so much. So since I hated it in the Justice League movie, I certainly don't want to see a sequel to that. And it came out that his plan was to kill off Batman He said this in an interview. I'm not giving spoilers. This comes from the mouth of Zack Snyder. His plan in the sequel was to kill off Batman and have Lois Lane and Superman's baby, Bruce Kent, grow up to be the next Batman. It just sounds terrible. I don't want to see that sequel. I don't know anyone who would. Maybe you want to see that sequel. I don't know. If you want to see that sequel, you and I are on a completely different page because that's not something I want to see. So I hope we get maybe like a sequel by like James Wan. Bring in Zachary Levi's Shazam and some of the other characters. I'd like to see Black Canary from Birds of Prey. Bring her into the Justice League because she's always been a Justice League member. And just move forward. Let's get away from Snyder's vision. Let's get away from Whedon. Let's get a new filmmaker who could take it forward. I think, James Wan is a good choice. There we go. So how many stars would I give? I would give this probably 4.5 stars out of 5. 4 or 4.5 stars, the Whedon cut. I can't say enough how much I love the Whedon cut. The Snyder cut, I would give like 2 stars. It's not awful. It's not awful. It's just long, slow, and self-indulgent. I cannot recommend it. If you are a huge fan of Snyder's previous DC films, maybe it's the film for you. But like I said, I was never a fan of his to begin with. Never a fan of his DC work. I like his non-DC work a lot, but I've never been a fan of his DC work. So that's going to be your touchstone. Do you like what he did in the past? If you did, you're probably going to like this. I did not like it. But here is the silver lining to it all. Let's wrap this up with a nice silver lining. The silver lining to it all is the Whedon cut and the Snyder cut essentially tell the same story, and neither cut really contradicts one another. One cut is longer and shows more stuff, and the other is shorter and, a brisker pace, but they don't really contradict each other. They both kind of tell the same story, just at different paces. So the beauty there is, both of these can be considered canon. One does not need to replace the other. This could be canon, that could be canon, and because they don't really interfere with one another. It's not like that film contradicts anything in this film. It's not like this film contradicts anything in that film. They're just kind of a different pace. So if in your head canon you want to believe that the Snyder Cut is the canon version of Justice League, you can do that. If you want to believe it's the Whedon Cut, you could do that too. And it really, frankly, doesn't matter. So I guess that's a nice little bonus there, is pretty much everyone gets what they want. If you like the Snyder Cut, you've got the Snyder Cut. If you don't care for the Snyder Cut, you got the Whedon Cut. So now we have options, and that's kind of a nice thing, isn't it? All right, guys, until next time, keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas with the plastic feet. Keep wearing those pajamas. Tell everyone you meet. Keep wearing those pajamas with the back door flap. Keep wearing those pajamas. Don't open, it's a trap. Oh no, it's a trap. Some people call them bitches, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander Adamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now we're having fun. Keep wearing those pajamas. And now the song is done.